that's really a wonderful thing. Like, I freed 1,000 slaves. I would have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves.
Mhm.
So that really attracted me. Like, most of us, like, we don't know, like, uh, from the victim standpoint. As I was playing the voice of the voiceless victims, face of victims,
Mhm.
and I still struggle, like, to understand, like, how people are not aware that they are victims and they just go around. What do you have to say about that, as well as, like, how is your podcast going on?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of people that are manipulated, um, I would say not woke, to their experience. So that experience of being manipulated and trafficked and giving let's say the sex trade, and giving all your money to this other person who is supposedly going to protect and love you, while you go out and do all the work and hand them the money, that is an extreme form of manipulation and exploitation. But that phrase applies to everyone, because I would have freed 1,000 freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. That's not my original saying, but I love to live by that term, because I think that there are many, many people, almost all the people, that are not living free right now. You, me, there's something about us that is preventing us from living our 100% full flavored selves. We're going around living our diet selves, but not our full flavored selves. As women, we're walking around wearing our Spanx to hold our stomachs in, and our high heels, knowing that our knees and our back hurts. We got hair on down to our butts. We got eyelashes on that come out a foot long. If we like those things, we should certainly enjoy those things. But if we're putting on that girdle, or if we're putting on that tie as a man, and we're uncomfortable dressing this part, and our language isn't the language that we use, but it's the fake language that we go out in the world and use. We come home and we use our comfortable language, and we have certain friends, or we drive certain vehicles, or if we don't, we're less than, and all those things that say you're not free. So I would have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Means if we're running out to help other people that are enslaved in trafficking and not even recognizing our own enslavement, why can't we be 100% our whole full selves? Why can't we speak the way that we speak, to people we meet? Why can't we be genuine and authentic? Why can't we do that? Because of oppression. And so many of us don't experience freedom, but many of us aren't even in touch with our own enslavement. We're going to go help somebody else. How are you going to help somebody else? You're not even in touch with your own, oppression. And so there's a lot of people that are asleep right now that need to get woke, because they don't understand that they're not experiencing joy, real joy. That this planet, some people go in and out of spaces and it doesn't even bother them, because some of these spaces were built for them. And then other people go in and out of these spaces and they feel very uncomfortable. They should not feel uncomfortable. So they try to dress a certain way. They try to wear their hair a certain way. They try to speak a certain way to feel accepted. And every time they do that, they move more away from their genuine self and into the enslavement of what they're pressured to do and be. And so, we sort of other these trafficking victims and say, well, their experience is terrible. We don't even look at our own experience. I think if we connected their experience and our own experience, we'd have a lot more humanity and understanding about why, in their extreme case, this has happened.
It's funny, Dr. Williamson, and we will definitely want to hear about the podcast here in a second. But I feel like, and this may sound strange, but the first kind of year of the pandemic.
Mhm.
As hard as it was and as difficult as it was, and it hurt not being able to see friends and family as regularly as I normally would, there was a part of it that felt really freeing in that, you didn't have to, like you're saying, like dress up and go to the 9 to 5 and be on this routine. And, you could work, but it felt like a burden of just kind of the normal day-to-day life was kind of lifted off of people's shoulders a bit.
Exactly. Because you didn't even have to totally dress. You can incorporate your life the way it should be incorporated. I've been in Zoom meetings where I had to be there, but I was basically had to listen. So I could turn my camera off and my mic off, and I could be folding laundry while I'm listening. I'm doing two things at once, which I can integrate my life. And actually, I have been a lot more productive. I know that there's a great divide in the pandemic. There are people that's lives have been devastated because of the pandemic. I mean, they were essential workers that were let go. They couldn't. And then there's a whole nother segment of society that is secret as it's kept, saved more money, saved more time, actually doubled up and was more productive at work and at home because they could put dinner on and be in the meeting. They could, do all kinds of tasks instead of giving over themselves fully and more artificially to this place of business. So I think and businesses are learning that sometimes they don't need all this brick and mortar and control over people, that people will deliver, wherever they are in the world, and it's a lot more convenient for them. So, yeah, I mean, the pandemic has worked out a lot for me. I mean, right now, I did wash my face and comb my hair and put a shirt on for you all, but I very much assure you that I am in my house slippers and my pajama bottoms right now. So,
and one of the things I noticed is it's in a way it's allowed me to be more creative and put more energy into the, like I do podcasts and I've got, various side projects that I work on, and I had time. And the people that I do the shows with had time. And so, bringing that back to your podcast, can you tell the audience a little bit about that and, some of the things that you talk about?
Yeah, for sure. And just let me mention that it is true. When you can be more 100% your whole self, you can bring creativity to the table. But once you get up in the morning, you go shower, you put all the clothes on, you put the makeup on, you get in a car, you drive to the place, you fight for the parking space. They just beat all the creativity out of you. Then you come and sit down, you're supposed to be creative. But so I think a lot of wonderful products will also come out of the pandemic because people have been allowed to be creative. And so same thing is true, with the Emancipation Nation podcast. I mean, I thought about that. I know people globally around the world. I have known them for many years. They are freedom fighters. And I thought, this is a nation. And it's not bound by borders, by man-made borders. It is a nation of people that maybe don't have a large voice like the politicians and things, but there's a whole nation of people who just believe in humanity and freedom. And they believe in emancipation. Like once you become free, then all kinds of wonderful things happen. The gifts that you bring to the world are wonderful. And so the Emancipation Nation, we have listeners from around the globe. Most of our listeners are in the US, however, and we talk about human trafficking and anti-human trafficking efforts. We interview experts all across the US and around the world. And, it was born out of the idea that there's a lot of people that have a lot of passion and commitment for this issue, but they don't have a lot of time to go get the knowledge and skills that they might need. And so a podcast, as you know, is wonderful because people can be walking, they can be driving, they can be doing the things that they do, and they can be listening and learning and becoming enlightened and skilled. And so that's really the reason for the podcast. And, we do a podcast weekly. It comes out on Tuesdays, and we interview people. We talk about tough subjects. We go more in depth in how to do this type of work, how to do it. So we bring on people that are actually doing all kinds of anti-trafficking activities from all kinds of disciplines and all kinds of perspectives. And so that's kind of what we do on the podcast, and it's been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah, from my side, is there any story victim become trafficker? If yes, why and what made them?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very common. Unfortunately, somebody is victimized, and particularly in the sex trade. And, they're 14, 15, 16, 17. They've been trafficked. They've stuck with this trafficker. They've become committed and loyal. They think they love this trafficker. They have been told that this is the life for them. And so they get to be 18, 19, 20 years old. And now they are out recruiting for the trafficker, and they become what we call the bottom. And the bottom is the assistant assistant to the trafficker. They kind of know the most about the business, but no more than the trafficker, because the trafficker always knows the most, and trafficker allows them to know what they want them to know. But they move from victim to now perpetrator. And I've seen many, many cases of that. And I've seen many sad cases of victims who were missed by all the systems and then reached 18 years old and then was arrested for trafficking and is now in prison for trafficking. But no one recognized their victimization, but they recognized their criminalization. And so that's just very sad to see, but it happens very commonly, very often. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So we have one particular case where this girl, I'll call her Peaches, but she was trafficked at age 14. She had a mom who was in prison for homicide. I think she had some sisters that were involved in prostitution. She had some friends involved in prostitution. So her life was kind of immersed in this. And she got involved, and she was trafficked, by some guys, and got to be, she also was in child protection because she was also a victim of abuse. She was arrested. So she had been in juvenile court before. She had run away from foster care. So she had been involved in runaway shelters before. So you had all these touch points of juvenile court, child welfare, schools when she was missing, runaway shelters when she ran away, all of these professionals who saw her, everybody missed it. And then when she turned 19 years old, she trafficked this girl who was 14 years old, and everybody did their job at that point. They arrested her. They brought her. The judge did his job. The police did their job. Child welfare did their job. Everybody did their job. The prosecutor did their job. And now she is spending 9 years in prison as a trafficker. When she gets out, she still has no positive support systems. And so that is the trajectory of her life. And everybody says, we want to help victims. That's a strong pill to swallow. So, yeah.
I have a follow-up question, Celia. I just got a disturbing message, right? We are not equipped on that as such, like we are talking about human trafficking and labor trafficking. And we got a message from somebody saying that I'm getting abused. Can you help me in this? And they mentioned that I got the number from Instagram. I was in search of foundation like yours. If your foundation will not help me, how can I expect to get help from others? And also she mentioned her name and age as 20. please help me. And I was shocked. Like, I don't know what to do, how to react to that.
Yeah, I get those quite often. And what I try to do is I give them the national hotline number. And sometimes I go into more detail if I know the community, or I know there's an FBI task force, or there's a law enforcement task force, or there's an anti-trafficking coalition. But that national hotline number, it's you probably know 888-373-7888. That's the national hotline number. And that, when they hang up the phone after talking, they will connect that information to the local anti-trafficking coalition and or the local task force. So that doesn't always sound comforting to people, but they really do connect with that law enforcement or whoever that is in that community, because the hotline has spent a lot of time reaching out and making sure that they have the right connections across the US anyway. And now it's somewhat global, but they will connect that person. And the other problem is that sometimes when the task forces have gotten that information, they're doing investigations and they won't talk to you about the investigations. So you might think, or the person who called in might think nothing's happening. Well, they didn't do anything, because an open investigation, no one will talk about, because they don't want to blow the case. So, and often, if the information is credible, then they will go out and start doing quiet investigations and surveillance and all the things. But the person who reported it will never know it. They'll just see it on the news one day if there's an arrest. And sometimes that victim is afraid. So when they call that hotline number, that operator will talk them through kind of some of the things that might happen. Or if that person says, I don't want, any police involved, I'm just looking for support for myself, they can connect them to that local coalition. And there are lots of coalitions. I'm from the state of Ohio, so we have 21 coalitions just in the state of Ohio. So there are a lot of coalitions in different regions that are doing some work on this issue across the US. So I get those. And I also get calls from people who have, various mental health issues and they are confused. And, I get those calls too. I don't know which is which. Sometimes I find out, but I refer everybody as if every single call is a credible call. I stop what I'm doing. Whatever I'm doing, I stop what I'm doing and I attend to that call or that email, and I make sure that I connect that person to who they should be connected to. So, but if anybody's in doubt, they can just always connect them to the national hotline.
So how do we exactly know that, like, if they are not pranking us or playing with us? Like you said, right? Just stop now what you are doing and then reach out and find out. And then I don't know if.
Yeah, you'll never know. You never know. But I mean, I found out when, messages start to become confused and more disoriented kind of messages and that sort of thing. But either way, I treat every single one as a serious situation and I connect them to where they need to be connected, because somewhere along the line in their community, when they get connected to a coalition or whatever, that coalition can then, if they're not being trafficked, can connect them to a mental health provider or connect them to whatever services they need. So I treat every one of them the same, but I do know that there are some people that are unfortunately disoriented or have a mental health issue or stop taking their medication. And so they can get confused, but they're very serious in that they think this is really happening in their lives. So, it's a call for help in either way for them. So I connect them, and then whatever it takes, it gets back to the providers that can help in a trafficking case. And those providers then will, recognize if that person is actually needing different services than, human trafficking focused services. Yeah.
So in terms of what you mentioned, right? So I can understand on the sex trafficking case, it's the law enforcement is involved. But in terms of labor trafficking, we really don't know what exactly because we are doing an experiment. We even called the national hotline and reported that the labor trafficking is happening. And it's not an emergency thing that they say you don't have to go to the law enforcement. I'm safe, but I am reporting it and I'm scared. Like if I report this to the authorities, I'll be deported, and because my employer is threatening. So to your point, as you said, the investigation will go on without the knowledge to the victim, how he is supposed to survive here.
Yeah, so the investigation may go on without the knowledge of the reporter, whoever reported it. So, if I see something going on and I'm suspicious and I call the hotline, they're not going to share any information with me. But if the victim calls, at some point, they're going to make contact with that victim. So that's particularly tricky. Like, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is particularly tricky, particularly if there are other vulnerable people back in the home country that these traffickers know about, or this person's children or this person's family is still back in the home country. That becomes very a delicate situation. And in my experience, it's been a situation that has been planned. And so when they make contact or they rescue that victim, at the same time, in past cases or cases I know about, I can't talk about everybody across the US and what will happen, but in the cases I know about, they have made contact as well with the family in the home country in an attempt to protect that family at the time that they're rescuing the person out of this situation. Because often when somebody's labor trafficking victim that has come to the US, for instance, and is trafficked here, they usually get surrounded in communities of their own ethnic group. That can be very tricky because people in that community may know the traffickers or may communicate back to that home country. And so there's a lot of information that can be shared. There are a lot of maybe bad actors involved in the community that know about this situation. So the task force has to investigate it very delicately, and even down to the translators, if translation is needed, because translators also may have come from that community. And so it gets very tricky. And in some cases, you even want to have written some written translation, and then some in translation that needs to be interpreted from two different, in an interpreter and a translator, so that one of them has part of the information, one of them has the other part of the information, and you take the names out. So it becomes very, very tricky, but task forces become skilled in how to do that, and simultaneously kind of protect the family in the home country, rescue the person in the US, and also be very careful about the interpreters that they use so that information doesn't get back to traffickers and those types of things. It can be very complex, but and there's a lot of task forces, I think, across the US that do not do a good job. So, put that out there too.
All right. Yes, Shiva.
Yes, my last question, how to stop the survivor going back to as a victim? Some cases, maybe.
Say that again.
Yeah.
Say that one
How
more.
to stop, how to stop survivor from victim to again back to victim.
Yeah, how does
like a normal sex trafficking maybe happened.
Say that again. Say that.
I mean, if they are a survivor, right? So they have been rescued and they survived. And what are the chances of them getting back being a victim, right?
Oh yeah. Very. Someone who is rescued and has survived a horrific experience like that, the probability that they will go back into that situation is very high, because there are all kinds of factors. Freedom is one factor, and it's, to us, the most important factor. But there are other factors, like being able to eat and sleep and have a place. That's another factor. And so people that leave that situation or get out of that situation, if they face a significant number of barriers to opportunity, they might go back into a situation like that. If they get out and this person says, I love you, come back, they might go back into that situation if they don't have a lot of support and opportunities out in once they leave that situation. And so there's a lot of manipulation that has occurred over a long period of time. And that, of course, is going to take time to undo all that. And there's been a lot of trust broken on both sides, right? On the underground market, that trafficker in that community, and conventional society in that community. It's not that we rescue somebody and they are so grateful and then their lives go on wonderfully. No. In sex trafficking, their customers have represented these people that are now supposed to be saving them, right? So their customers have been police officers, their customers have been lawyers, their customers have been social workers and pastors. And now you're telling me to trust? And I go in for services in places and they look at me like I'm a piece of dirt. They stigmatize me. They think I'm manipulating their services. They think it's their money, their healthcare they're helping me with. And I have to beg in the right way. I have to, kiss their butt on the right part of the cheek that they want me to kiss it on. It's like all of these things, like we are not good at helping people that have been traumatized. And so, the mystique of it all is that they're going to be rescued and life is going to be wonderful. No. It's like, I had one woman explain it to me. She's like, yes, my trafficker, my pimp beats me up because I didn't show up where I was supposed to be. Okay, that sounds terrible to me. To her, she said, but look, no one has ever been worried about where I am. You see what I'm saying? So it's a whole nother level. It's like we in our social services, in our mental health services, sometimes we are not kind and we are not helpful and we are not non-judgmental like we should be. We are very judgmental. We are very stigmatizing. If somebody doesn't show up at this time, this day, this way, and you're 15 minutes late, well, your appointment's canceled. You got to reschedule. So these are all of the things that
exactly like if it's a job, like you're fired.
Yes, that's right. And there's no, maybe you had nightmares all night because of your trauma and you overslept. No one cares. You're fired. So you're exactly right. So we have not told the truth about, what we offer survivors, like for real. So we have a lot of work to do. We just wonder, why do you go back into that situation? It's like, well, let me see, why do you get up and go to your job? I mean, you love it today, but have you been duped? Have you been brainwashed? Because you remember when you took your first 8-hour job, you were like, oh, I don't want to give them my time. 8 hours, 8 whole hours. But then they said, but look, if you give us 8 hours, we're going to give you money. And you said, well, I hate that, but I'll do it. And then over time, you set your alarm and you hate it going in there. But look, more time passed and then you didn't really have to even set your alarm anymore. Now you just jumped on up. Now you went to work. Now more time passed. And you know what? You became committed and you became loyal. And you even started talking that good game. Like, I love this job. Look what I do. No, what you've been conditioned. But now I'm just going to say that's the process. What you do is a good thing and, you know, all those things. But the process is still the same. And so maybe you get mad and you say, I want my dignity and my self-respect and my freedom back, and I quit. Now you go home and you're broke, sad, hungry. Nobody's helping you. You go and say, help me, and they go, help yourself. I got my own things to do. So now you go back to that job, or you go back, you know, it's the same process. So if we give enough help and support and non-judgmental, you know, help people keep their dignity and their self-respect, then we have the highest chance that they will transition on to something, you know, better and healthy for them. If not, then we run the risk that they go back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say that, like, known devil is better than the unknown angel.
Oh, that's so well said. Yeah.
So that's why, like, people get back to the same thing. And Nate, I wanted to say, like, you're fired, you're late. But I can't do that, man. Star. So with you, the experiment remains.
Yes, I don't get my freedom just yet.
That's right.
But yeah, like we definitely are so thankful that you made time for us today, Dr. Williamson. You're one of our favorite guests. I did want to remind everybody the podcast is Emancipation Nation. I'm looking at the website right now, so it's available on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. I don't know if it's available on Spotify.
It's available wherever you
get so you can unsubscribe from Joe Rogan and listen to Dr. Williamson. That's my recommendation.
Please do. He has enough. It's too much.
It's too much.
Well, thank you all. You guys are a great group of guys, and I always enjoy spending time with you, and it's always fun. It's always enlightening. It's a dark topic. I'm so glad you all cover it, and but you also do it with a little inspiration and bringing a little bit of the funny, because you have to be able to be that way to stay in this work. So I thank you all for being good role models and mentors to other people, that they can do this work with all the heart that they have, but they can also have the support of each other and have fun and be a little more enlightened. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Thank you, Shiva, for joining us. JK, thank you everybody for watching. And do you want to send us out, JK, or do you want me to do it? Am I still fired?
No,
am I still fired?
Like, I'm just going to roll out the outro. Thank you all. And it's been a pleasure, Dr. Celia Williamson. Within the short notice, you honored us, like, by coming back again and sharing your thoughts. You are doing a wonderful job, and you are an inspiration and motivation to do this work in this field. Thank you again, and bye for now.
All right, appreciate you. Bye.
Bye.